the next 30 minutes, we are going to be discussing business. But let me start by just taking a look at, of course, like we do every Monday afternoon, what happened on the Nigerian Exchange Group last week. Last week, investors traded 8.736 billion shares worth 134 billion naira in 180,000 deals. As usual, the financial services industry, measured by volume, led activity charts. But surprisingly, insurance companies, right, led the equities. I mean, trading in top 3 equities were insurance companies, and you understand that because there's been a new insurance law signed, act signed into law. You might just take a look at that and figure out what it is. That's not what I'm going to be discussing today. I might have some other time Monday when to discuss the developments in insurance. But today, the big issue is one of critical importance to businesses in Nigeria, and of course, Nigerians at large. The evolving trade relationship between Nigeria and the United States seem to be witnessing some changes due to 2 recent developments: the U.S. tariff on Nigerian imports and the new visa restrictions. And with me here today, I have someone to take a look at this. Let's find out how much of an impact these will have on Nigerians and businesses in Nigeria. I'm delighted to have in the studio with me Wofai Samuel. She's the acting Director General of the Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you very much, Hilary. I'm so excited and honored, pleased to be on your program. Thank you.
Nice to have you here today.
Thank you very
in
much.
April, well, we know that the U.S. President Donald Trump imposed, first of all, a 14% tariff on exports from several countries, including Nigeria. And after a while, it was suspended because the U.S. gave countries 90 days to negotiate individual deals with the U.S. Now, I'm not sure how the negotiation with Nigerian authorities went, but I don't think they were successful because recently the U.S. now imposed a 15% tariff on Nigerian imports. What do you think of this? And what is the Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce's assessment of this?
Thank you very much for the question, Hilary. We're indeed in very interesting times. And like I always mention, the relationship Nigeria shares with the U.S. is priority. Just like the U.S., the relationship the U.S. shares with any country in the world is equally priority. So the tariff that has been slammed on Nigeria is not just Nigeria. Virtually every country in the world was slammed with a 10 to 14% blanket tariff. Nigeria had a 14% tariff slammed on it, and then much later it was reviewed to 15%. At the moment, as we speak today, the level of tariff that Nigeria has been given is 15%. So how this affects us, it's 3 ways. So number one, foreign exchange. So when the tariffs are high, a lot of times it decreases the revenue you get on foreign exchange. So foreign exchange is definitely affected, whether in Nigeria or any other country. And then the level of imports. Nigeria is more of an import-dependent country than an export-dependent country. If you notice, when we were maximizing our GOA to the best of our ability, the most that we exported to the U.S. was mostly crude oil. They were mostly oil products. Our revenue was mostly derived from oil sales and oil services. So we have not really exported services with respect to, produces that we manufacture in the agriculture sector, the mining sector, to name a few. So import is definitely affected. The level of imports we'll be doing from the U.S. to a reasonable extent might decline, and I'll come to the statistics much later. Then away from...
I don't understand why the level of imports from the U.S. will decline. Since Nigeria is not particularly increasing tariffs on the U.S. The U.S. is the one increasing the tariffs. Can you explain the dynamics?
Okay, so when I talk about that dynamics, I'll give you a typical example, a very practical example. In the last year, in 2024, America exported from Nigeria about in the last 6 months, from January up until May 2025, the U.S. has exported, or I'll say imported, from Nigeria to the tune of 515 billion USD. That's like a far cry from what was obtainable last year. Last year we had about I think it was for the entire year we had about 5.2 billion worth of imports from the US in a whole year, comparable to what we have right now at 2.5 or 2.6 billion, between that ratio. So if there's a lot of imports slammed on Nigeria to a reasonable extent, it affects the kinds of goods and services that are produced to the US. And if it affects the kinds of goods and services we produce and export to the US, our exports are generally affected. So as I was saying, the tariffs affects foreign exchange. It dwindles your foreign exchange. It affects the level of imports that we do with America. And then lastly, to a reasonable extent, it could also affect the partnerships and relationships that we share. The onus is now on Nigeria to, continue to negotiate just like we're doing now. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is speaking, the Ministry of Communication is speaking, the Minister of Trade and Investment is speaking. Continue to see how you can talk to the US and dialogue, and you shouldn't be retaliative. It should be negotiable. Negotiate all of these figures that they've slammed on us. And then also what we can do is maximize African free trade continental area. That's the AFCFTA. See how we can definitely work with our neighboring countries, Ghana, Benin Republic, Liberia, definitely countries around sub-Saharan Africa, to see how we can export more of our goods and services to them. Cross-border payments should be something that we should also review in detail. Cross-border payments, trading with other countries in sub-Saharan Africa, and ensuring that payment is seamless. And then I'd also say, as much as we can, we need to upgrade the level of things that we produce, the quality, the quantity of what we produce, so that they are measurable with basic, best exportable global standards, in a way that our goods and services are sent out and they're not rejected. Still speaking to the 15% tariff, the Minister of Trade had said that Nigeria would not be adversely affected, which is actually true to a very large extent.
I listened to that, and I'm wondering how true.
Okay, considering the fact that so many other countries around sub-Saharan Africa are slammed with tariffs up to 20%, 25%, and 30%. And I'd like to say that the reason why Nigeria even got as little as 15% is because of the surplus that existed between Nigeria and the US last year. Our surplus was great. So the deficit between the deficit on trade between Nigeria and US in 2024 was just 1.5 billion USD. It was quite low, comparable to so many other countries in even West Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, thanks to, the ambassador at the time, thanks to the Consul General, Will Stephen, who continued to, the former Consul General, rather, Will Stephen, who continued to promote entrepreneurship, innovation, and businesses, creating the enabling environment for American businesses to thrive and work with us. So our surplus was enormous in 2024, and that's why the tariff that has been placed on Nigeria at 15% is not so high. And then you also need to understand that Nigeria is exploring, other relationships with so many other countries, but no relationship can be like what we share in the US. Right now, Nigeria is America's third largest trading partner in the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. After Egypt, South Africa, you have Nigeria. So we're trying to explore trading relationships with BRICS. We're trying to explore trading relationships with South Africa, with China, and so many other countries. But like I mentioned, the dynamics of American relationship with us is just something that cannot be replaced by any country in the world or any region. So instead of running away from the tariff US has placed on us, I think we need to see this as an opportunity to increase our human capital, our human capacity, human capital development, skills, upgrade our skills, try as much as we can to see how well we align with the priority areas of the US. And I'd like to conclude on this very first question by saying that America has some major priorities under Trump 2.0. His Excellency President Trump is very, very specific about technology. He's very specific about economy. And when you talk about economy, it's business, manufacturing, what's the word now? Manufacturing, mining, raw earth. On several occasions, he's always spoken about raw earth in Africa. How can we process some of these things and ensure that we sell them to the US? They would definitely buy. So he's very particular about technology. He's particular about energy, trying to make America an energy dominant country. He's trying to make America like the Bitcoin, crypto, currency capital in the world.
You mentioned energy, which brings me to something Trump said in one of his speeches. I remember him saying, drill, baby, drill.
Drill, baby, drill, yes,
yeah,
please.
Meaning that, of course, the U.S. plans to drill more oil. Wouldn't that negatively impact on Nigeria's ability to sell to the United States and even sell to other countries?
Very simple, in very, very simple terms. That's why the US is saying we're moving away from developmental aid. We're moving away from, what's the word now? From being the big brother of the whole world, trying to supply aid and humanitarian assistance to the world. And we're being commercial. Everything is transactional. Everything is value driven. So Nigeria has to move away from being an oil dependent commodity country to being an export service products, goods, and commodity dependent country. So definitely, if America is drilling baby drill and they're having their oil, they're having their energy, to a reasonable extent, they don't really need your oil, they don't really need your energy. And that's why the President of the United States is very particular about raw earth. If you notice, he's not talking about oil, he's not talking about energy, he's moving away to natural resources that can be taken from, countries like the Democratic Republic of Congo, to name a few of them. So we also have to diversify.
Will call that exploitation.
Well, when you talk about exploitation, at the end of the day, it depends on who it's coming from and what perspective you're seeing it. If you have a resource and you're not putting it into use, it's only normal for anybody who needs to use that resource to pay you and put that resource into use. If you do not want to be exploited, then put your resources into use. Make your environment as comfortable and as convenient and possible in a way that your resources can be efficiently put into use, but you don't blame a country or people who see value in what you have and decide to use it. Develop your infrastructure, develop your human capacity as much as you can, upgrade the quality of what you do so that the entire world will be attracted to what you have. I mean, you see what is going on right now. You talked about the tariff America has put on us. There's also some visa issues that we're currently dealing with. And if I mean, we can go into that much later when you ask for questions about visas. But I'll just say generally with respect to trade, Nigeria is not reactionary like the minister said. We just have to put our acts together, see how we can align with the priority areas of Trump 2.0, see where we can create value to America. America would definitely derive value from us if they see value. And then one final thing I'd like to say with respect to this first question is, in this first/second quarter, America's surplus has risen. I think they've made a surplus of about 115 million USD.
Thereabouts.
Yes, exporting to Nigeria. So Nigeria has imported more from America than we have exported to America from January to May.
Yes, I think in the first 5 months, from the data I have, Nigeria's exports to the US has actually fallen, and now the US has a trade surplus of approximately $295 million.
I'm glad that you're fact checking everything I'm saying. So in the last few months, we can see that the policies of His Excellency President Donald Trump in America is working for Americans. Typical example with Nigeria, they've had a surplus of over 115 million naira from January to May between US and Nigeria. That has never happened in a long time. It's always been deficit, like we usually, export more.
Yeah.
But in the last few months from January to May, America has been seen as importing more from us than we export to them. So this is like a wake-up call for every country in the world. Put up policies that you think will be efficient for your citizens, your businesses, and your entire community to thrive. Because in the next 4 years, we're in for surprises with President Trump 2.0.
So let's talk about some of those surprises. I know there are some things that Nigeria, we'll come to that, but some things that Nigeria is working on that doesn't seem to align with Donald Trump's policies or direction. So first of all, Nigeria is getting closer to the BRICS, right? How will that affect Nigeria-US trade relationship, especially as Donald Trump has said he might impose a 10% extra tariff on countries that align with the BRICS?
I mean,
and then second of all, too, in talking about that, we still don't have an ambassador to the United States.
Okay. I wouldn't want to delve into policy subject matters because I'm not a policy maker. So I'd rather speak to, the issues pertaining to business. Speaking to BRICS, which directly affects everyone. So Nigeria is not officially a member of BRICS.
Yeah,
it hasn't been declared anywhere, proclaimed that Nigeria is officially a member.
Has become the ninth partner of BRICS.
And according to the presidency of, the presidency, meaning, people, spokespersons, they've opined that these are just strategic alliances and relationships that Nigeria is forming with the BRICS nation. And to a reasonable extent, on a very, very blanket scale, there's absolutely nothing wrong with forming alliances with any country. You can form alliances with to improve trade and better the lifestyle and the lives of your citizens. But at the end of the day, America is a sovereign country that decides who it wants to work with and how it wants to work with and how it wants to work with them. So previously, I think about 3 weeks ago or a month ago, the president of the United States was very clear. Countries that align with BRICS, like you've said, would be slammed with additional tariffs. That has not come into effect. Nigeria aligns with BRICS, but we only had 1 extra percent tariff slammed on us from 14% to 15%. Now, like I mentioned, for Nigeria, we are also a sovereign country and we have the right to align with whoever we want to align with. Aligning with BRICS in the last few months, I think, our trade surpluses with BRICS has been slightly above what we've had with the US in the last few months. Considering the fact that, a lot of BRICS nations produce what we want and they are affordable. To a reasonable extent, more affordable than American products. But at the end of the day, the president of the United States is saying, you can work with us. You're manufacturing for the things that you're manufacturing. Instead of going to China, instead of going to Vietnam, Taiwan, and all of these places, come and manufacture in the US. If you manufacture in the US, we would ensure that we give you like tax breaks, tax waivers. We could review your tariffs if you're manufacturing here. For some of the chips and everything you're producing in China and in all of these countries, come and produce them here. If you produce them here, we could find a way to work and merge around, whatever it is we're assigning to you. So for the US, they definitely would not be happy if they find Nigeria or any other country who they consider as strong business partners aligning with BRICS. So that is solely a policy issue. But generally, I would say to the benefit of Nigeria, fine, they can align with whoever they want to align with. But at the end of the day, do you think it is worth straining the relationship you have with America because you want to align with other partners. That's something you need to think deeply about, because they've been very clear about it. We don't want you aligning with BRICS. If you align with if you align with BRICS, or you align with anybody we see as an enemy or a threat to our economic development, we would have to slam your tariffs. So if Nigeria aligns with BRICS, and at the end of the day, President Trump's administration puts a tariff on Nigeria, then we should deal with it and find ways to work around it. You can't eat your cake and have it back.
Because I thought we had enough time, but we obviously don't have much time. But I want to ask something. What specific industries, which specific Nigerian industries do you think will be most impacted by these tariffs? Okay,
so the oil and gas industry is not impacted. Tariffs do not affect the oil and gas industry at all. But at the end of the day, how much is the world tilting to oil? Virtually every country is trying to drill their own oil. So for me, I would say the industries that are most affected are industries that are agriculture focused. So if you check, the most of what the US imports from us are mostly urea, fertilizer, to name a few. These are mostly agricultural products, not even mining, not so much of raw earths or minerals. So the agriculture sector would definitely be affected. And then the garment sector, the garment industry, if you notice, Nigerian Ankara, Nigerian fabrics, Kente, Adire, and so on and so forth, has become like a global world tour. A lot of countries now adorn these fabrics on their runways and so on. So it's a huge export source of income. It's a huge export base for Nigeria. So the garments factory, textiles and industries would greatly be affected. The agriculture sector would greatly be affected. And then to a large extent, services. I mean, Nigeria is equally also driven largely, by the services sector. I was expecting to ask a few questions about visas, because right now that's what is on the minds of everybody.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, while countries were actually seeking ways to navigate the new tariffs, Donald Trump imposed, new visa restrictions that affected Nigeria. So right now, it's upgraded its non-immigrants visa policy for several countries. So right now, most non-immigrants and non-diplomatic visas for Nigerian citizens are now single entry visas with a 3-month validity period. What's your assessment of this? As the acting DG of the Nigeria-American Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, just before I give you a brief answer to that, I just want to say something, right? For everything America does, 3 questions the current administration asks itself. Does it make America safer? Does it make America stronger? Does it make America more prosperous? And I did mention that we need to put together projects that align with America's interests. Lobito Corridor, for instance, is one of it. We saw the former president of the U.S. visiting for the first time in Africa, Angola. Lobito Corridor links Democratic Republic of Congo, Zambia, and Angola.
And then skips Nigeria.
Yes. No, Nigeria doesn't have the Lobito Corridor. But I'm just saying, projects like that, initiatives like that attracts American investments. Initiatives like that attracts U.S. interests.
So I'm talking about even when the U.S. president invited some African heads of states to the White House. Nigeria, ordinarily, you would think that a country like Nigeria would have a representative there, but Nigeria was completely skipped. Is this a sign of a dwindling Nigerian relevance to the U.S.?
To be very honest, I'm not the U.S. mouthpiece or spokesperson, but from my own point of view, I do not think every country has to be invited to the White House to meet with the President of the United States. So there's some countries in West Africa that have been invited, considering the kinds of minerals and natural resources those countries have. It could also be one of the reasons why they were invited. Like I mentioned, for everything the United States does is strategic. It's very, very strategic with what it does. So if Nigeria was not invited, who knows? Nigeria might be invited much later. President Trump still has more than 3 more years to go. So it doesn't erase the fact that Nigeria could be called on much later. But for the fact that Nigeria was not invited just necessarily means that conversation, to a greater extent, they didn't feel Nigeria was totally relevant in the scheme of that conversation. But that does not mean other conversations could not come out or come up that would have Nigeria involved in them. But let me respond to the visa question very quickly. Like you mentioned, Nigeria had a 5-year what's the word now? America gave Nigeria a 5 years visa. The visa life, or the visa shelf life and span, was for 5 years, but now it's been reviewed to 3 months and a single entry. So this is very, very simple. It's been reviewed for virtually so many countries around the globe: China, Myanmar, and so many of them. Cameroon. The policy is safe, responsible use of visas. America did that for 3 reasons. Reason number 1, they had complained bitterly that some countries did not have proper documentation of the citizens who were visiting US. Understand something, that immigration is very strong. Immigration, border security, and control is something that is very, very strong in this administration, in the administration of President Donald Trump. Immigration is top on his priority. Even during his campaigns, he was very, very clear about what he was going to do with immigration. So for countries that do not have strong vetting with respect to documentation of people who are visiting America. They have problems with that. The consul officer who is interviewing you needs to have an idea and detailed idea about who you are, where you're coming from, what your goals are, what your beliefs are before you come into the United States. Now, other reasons why they had to review this visa process from 5 years to 3 months is a lot of countries overstay their visas. And, automatically, Nigerians have the highest number of immigrants in the U.S., Nigeria diaspora immigrants in the U.S. So automatically, it means that we don't have the direct number of Nigerians who overstay their visas, but automatically, it means there's a possibility that some Nigerians overstay their visas, and that's just one way to curb visa overstays. And then the third reason, excluding the...
We'll be going on break shortly, so as a break, we need to pay some bills. But while we come back, I would like us to touch on this U.S. talk about reciprocity.
Okay.
Right, and what Nigeria needs to do concerning this visa issue.
Okay, thank you.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We'll be right back.
You've tried calling in, you've sent messages, you have had opinion, concerns, brilliant ideas. There's so much you've wanted to say, but time always runs out. The lines are always busy, the show keeps going, and your voice eventually doesn't get heard. But now, that changes. Now you have a chance to speak your truth, to express your views, to raise your voice where it truly matters. Introducing Voice of the People on 99.3 Nigeria Info. This is your platform, a space for real Nigerians to say what is on their minds. No interruptions, no time limits on the phone, and of course, you get to have your voice heard. Just you, your voice, your truth. Here's what to do. Record a short video of yourself, just 30 seconds or less, sharing your opinion on any given issue that concerns you. It could be about government, society, your community, fuel prices, insecurity, unemployment, healthcare, power, education, whatever you feel the need to be addressed. To record this video, make sure you are in a quiet place so we can hear you loud and clear. Then, post your video on social media with the hashtag NigeriaInfoVOTP. That is hashtag NigeriaInfoVOTP. Let your voice be heard. Be bold, be honest, be real. Because on a Voice of the People, everyone is listening. Nigeria is listening, and your voice could be the one that could spark change. Voice of the People. Every voice counts. Only on 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
Set. The champions are returning, and this time it's for glory. Get ready for the I Beg to Differ Tournament of Champions. Kicking off August 11th at 4 p.m. from the powerhouse cities of Abuja, Port Harcourt, and Lagos. Past winners now face off in the national finals to answer one question: who will be the champion of champions? 4 p.m. Abu Francis Helen Ebo of Government Science Secondary School, Piakasa Maitama Abuja, takes on Amuze David of Adebola Baptist Senior Secondary School, Lagos. On the topic, loyalty to tribe is more celebrated than loyalty to country in Nigeria. Then at 5 p.m., Majesty Joseph Ojochegbe of Government Day Secondary School, Karu Abuja, goes head-to-head with Afolayan Shongoluye of Christian High School, Lekki. On the topic, modern students are being overtested. 2 fierce battles, 4 brilliant minds, 1 crown, 1 winner. Who will rise? Who will differ the best? This is I Beg to Differ, the Tournament of Champions. Don't miss it. I Beg to Differ starts August 11 from 4 p.m. Proudly supported by Obi Weezy, Diamond of Pearls Travels Limited, a Janla Restaurant, Chrisland High School. I Beg to Differ, the Tournament of Champions.
Every day is about winning with one play on Nigeria Info. On Nigeria Info, daily winnings is now over 150,000 naira. Just go to oneplay.ng or dial *347 *880 #3#. Play with as little as 500 naira, and in a few seconds, your ticket is in the draw. The more you play, the better your chances of winning every day on the Morning Crossfire, WhatsApp Lagos, and Game On shows on weekdays and the Football Frenzy shows on weekends. But that's not all. Every Friday, there will be a 500,000 naira jackpot. Playing during the week automatically qualifies you for the weekly jackpot. Your chances of winning are the same, whether you play on oneplay.ng or dial *347 *880 #3#. Remember to play responsibly. Not suitable for persons under the age of 18. OnePlay is a registered trademark under Lasho Trading Services Limited, licensed by the Lagos State Lotteries and Gaming Commission.
99.3 Nigeria Info.
Your number one station for talk. Let's talk. Let's talk.
Okay, so I'm sorry we don't have much time. Time up. Do you have closing words just on how Nigeria?
99.3 Nigeria.
On just how Nigeria and the United States can, strengthen their relationship.
So I'd say, like I mentioned about the visa issues, Nigeria should not be reactive. The visa, whatever America has placed on us, is not meant to scare us away or, create a strain within our relationship. It's a global policy that's affecting virtually every country in the world. Like I mentioned, Cameroon, Myanmar, and a few other countries. Some of them have even been banned. Countries like Afghanistan have been banned from entering the United States with effects from a specific timeout. Then from September 5th, some countries in Africa, specific to Gambia,
seconds?
would be facing a $5,000 to $20,000 bond. You're applying for a visa, you have to pay $5,000 to $20,000 to ensure that you're returning, because so many persons who are coming from this part of the world overstay their visas and do not understand the responsible use of visas. So Nigeria isn't slammed with such stringent measures, so we shouldn't take it too personal.
Thank you
as
so
much
much
as you can adhere with the policies of using visas rightly, and that's it.
Thanks so much for your time here on the show on the Broad Street Drive. Wofai Samuel, the acting director general of the Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
The news update on 99.3 Nigeria Info. 99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.